Dabar, Kahalayim La, Abanawa Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Harachak Wadash, Wa Mashana, Kabawadium, Lahazaquanium, Shal Gadwa Rakab, sincere Shalawam, into the 144,000 hopeful elect men scattered abroad, as well as you 1/3 women and children, righteously seeking out your salvation with fear and trembling. The brother Thon Knott from the Great Millstone Branch of Las Vegas, coming at you again in the spirit. This is a lesson going into Sirach 13:1. Which came to me as I was watching another set of brothers a lesson earlier. They had brought this precept out, and it really stuck with me. So the spirit was on me to go into it more and turn it into a lesson. So here it is. So like I said, we're going into Sirach 13:1. Pretty much the basis of this lesson is the company you keep will ultimately shape your spirit. So let me go right into the precept. It says Sirach 13:1. He that toucheth pitch shall be defiled therewith, and he that hath fellowship with a proud man shall be like unto him. So yeah, for you that do not know, pitch, if you look it up, on the web, it says pitch and tar. Pitch is a sticky residue like unto tar. If you touch it, it clings to you. It'll cling to your clothing. Even if you touch it briefly, it'll leave a stain onto you. So when you look it up, it says pitch and tar, dark sticky substances made from plants or fossil fuels. Tar is a thick liquid byproduct of processing coal or wood. Pitch is what remains when you boil or distill tar. Pitch hardens into a solid at room temperature, while tar stays liquid. So tar is the liquid, but pitch is what you get after that liquid starts to cool down and hardens up. They use it. They use it for like roofing and different types of construction. They use it to pave roads. It's like I said, it's very sticky. So some construction, they use it to bind materials together. Me personally, my experience I've had with it, and to be honest, not until I kind of heard the brothers speaking about it, and going into the precept, I didn't know the difference between tar and pitch. Not until I had they kind of explained it, and I looked into it more, and I realized, I have dealt with this, within my life of, working in construction and stuff like that. The type of construction we used to do, we used to work, we did a little bit of everything. So, we live in a small town, where I live, and, sometimes roads needed to be paved over. We cut out pieces of the road and we have to reconstruct it after we're done working on whatever water lines are underneath the ground. Then we put that tar and pitch and roll over it and all that, make the road whole again. But if you ever worked with that material, yes, it is a very sticky material, and it does get over it. It gets on everything. You touch a little bit of it, and it's on your hands for a good while. It stains your hands. That blackness of the pitch. Like I said, it gets all over your clothes. We're using flat shovels to spread it around, to get it out evenly so we could roll over it and compact it and make the road firm. But after you're done moving that pitch and tar with that flat shovel, you gotta soak it in diesel fuel, and that's what we use to get that pitch, all that clumped up tar and pitch off of our shovels when we're done. Showing that showing that it stains, that sticky tar, it stains and clings to whatever it touches. And in the same way, if you keep company with proud or wicked or ungodly people, their spirit begins to cling to you, and rub off on you their habits, their bad habits, so to speak, and like it even says in 1 Corinthians 15:33, to back up this point, it says, "Be not deceived. Evil communications corrupt good manners." So yeah, Paul in this precept, Paul is echoing the wisdom of that of Sirach 13:1. Constant fellowship with corrupt people gradually corrupts righteous behavior. Because people with spirits on the spirits that people have on them, they're contagious. Ultimately, when it's all said and done, a righteous spirit or could a person with a righteous spirit can influence others, but a person with the wicked spirit, that wickedness is also infectious if you're not spiritually grounded and built up. If you're not constantly tapping into the spirit and heavy in your prayer, heavy in your studies. The flesh is the flesh, and at some point or another, it's bound to bend. You know what I mean? So if you are in one way or the other, you could, that flesh will bend for the good or for the bad. You could be a hard-headed individual, but if you surround yourself with the right people, like I said, eventually that spirit's gonna bend, it's gonna flex, it's gonna move in the way that it's going to move in the way that it needs to move, given the circumstances of who you're around. If you, like I said, if you're that stubborn individual, and you're trying to change for the better, and you start, you're coming into the truth, and you start every brother kind of notices this. It's different, it varies from spirit to spirit in a brother, but like when we first start getting into the truth and we start surrounding ourselves within the brotherhood, or like-minded individuals that are righteous and sincere in this truth, our habits and the way we the way we think, it starts to change. You know what I mean? We're not thinking in the way of the world anymore. Now we're starting to think in a righteous mindset. So like I said, if you're not in that mindset already, and then we start surrounding ourselves within the brotherhood, yeah, that flesh starts to bend and mold to become to ultimately fit. Like a puzzle piece. At first, our worldly spirit, it doesn't fit within a worldly spirit does not fit into a righteous mindset. But the more we hang out with the more we fellowship and grow in spirit and in the word, that our spirit starts to mold to fit that puzzle. And it's the other way around. That puzzle piece could always be changed, so to speak, metaphorically speaking, because you could be a righteous brother and all in it, in it to win it. But if you start coming around the wrong people, and their spirits are influencing your spirit, like I said, that flesh will bend, and unfortunately it'll bend that puzzle piece so much that it's not going to fit into that righteous mindset. Is not going to fit into that worldly, a worldly mindset's not going to fit into that righteous puzzle, and vice versa. So that's the point I was trying to make. Again, be not deceived. Evil communications corrupt good manners. So yeah, I'd also like to go into the book of Proverbs, chapter 13. It's like 13 and 20. He that walketh with the wise men shall be wise, but a companion of fools shall be destroyed. So yeah, when you go into that word, for wise, let me actually go into the blue letter. I have the definitions, but I do not have the word. Sirach. Alright, 13 and, wrong word. Wise. Alright. So, the Hebrew word for wise in Proverbs 13 is H2450.
Strong's H2450. Chacham. Chacham.
It says Chacham, but in Paleo Hebrew, the correct way of saying it would be Chakam. Yeah, Chakam. Let me go to the definition. A wise man, skillful in technical work, wise in administration, shrewd, crafty, cunning, wily, subtle. This is the one that, the point though. Learned, shrewd class of men. Prudent, prudent, foreseeing, like it says, learned, a man with wisdom. A prudent pretty much means to foresee, to be able to use discernment, and act accordingly. Like I said, you foresee the outcome of a situation, so you use your discernment, or that wise man would use his discernment to maneuver in whatever situation he finds himself in, to be able to have the best result or outcome, that wouldn't be of danger to them, or the people around them. When we're out on the highways and byways, and a scoffer comes up, talking crap and trying to push brothers' buttons, or just going against the grain. Yeah, I'm sure every brother wants to ring to wring out that dude's neck, or just hop on him and cut him up. But cut him up spiritually, I mean, not physically. But sometimes that's hopping into the situation and stirring things up. I mean, yeah, we want to to prove that point and to shut them down, and just hey, get out here with that bullshit. But like I said, it's not always expedient, and you're not always going to get the best results. And it may feel good in our spirit, like, yeah, I showed that dude or whoever, I showed that demon what's up, with the word and with the spirit. But like I said, the key word is demon. You know what I mean? You never know how a demon's going to act, or which way the situation's going to go when you're dealing with a demon. You could hop out there and shut down whatever point they're trying to make, but at the end of the day, we're dealing with demons, and you stir up that demonic spirit within a person, and who knows how they're going to react, and who knows how the outcome of that situation could end. At the end of the day, we're out here on the mission, but we're all trying to complete the mission. We're out here to do the work and go home back to our families until the next week. We're not out here to play Street Fighter, or out here rumbling like we're the Warriors. You know what I mean? Like, nah, we're we're here to do the work of the Lord, and you know, be about our, you know, we're here to be about our Father's business, and then, you know, go on about our lives until, you know, the next camp day, you know, or next lesson. So like I said, yeah, wise, that wise man would be a, you know, learned man or a prudent man. You know, someone who exercises discretion and foresight and good judgment, you know, that acts carefully and considers the consequences before speaking or acting upon any certain situation, you know. Let me go into this precept real quick. It's actually still in Proverbs 13, but I'm gonna actually go back a little bit, you know, up to the 16th verse, you know. Proverbs 13:16. Every prudent man dealeth with knowledge, but a fool layeth up open his folly. You know, boom, plain and simple right there. You know, every prudent man dealeth with knowledge, you know, with wisdom, you know, with ultimately with fear, you know, fear of the Lord, you know, to be specific, you know, because that's where everything starts with, you know. Now to go into that full part of the precept, let me go into that word. I believe the word for fool is kasal in the Hebrew, you know, meaning stupid, like stupid fellow, dullard, simpleton, or an arrogant one. Because, you know, when you go back to Proverbs 13, you know, it's, Slakia, when you go back to Sirach 13, let me pull it up again. It says, you know, he that hath fellowship with a proud man. You know, in the scripture, pride is more than just confidence. You know, there's a lot of, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of proud people out there that are, you know, very arrogant, you know. Like I said, fools, you know, arrogant one, you know, a stupid fellow. These are people that are prideful, you know. So, like I said, it's more than confidence. It's more going into, you know, lifting oneself above the will of, or, you know, exalting yourself above that will of you know, Yahweh Bashem, Yahweh Shai. You know, they think they're bigger than the program, you know what I mean? They're, as they say in the world, they think, you know, they're him, you know? And when you go into Psalms 14:1, you know, it says right there, fools say there is no God, you know, so that's, you know, pretty much exalting yourself or lifting yourself up above the will and you know, above the commandments of the Lord. You know, you're acting in a foolish manner, in a prideful manner, in an arrogant, you know, manner, and just you're acting however you want to act because you think there's no consequences to come of your actions. You know, and the Lord, you know, the Lord, he hates that. You know, he hates that attribute in a person because, you know, pride, being a prideful person, it opposes when you're pride opposes the fear of the Lord. You know what I mean? You know, we all know what it says about, you know, a prideful person. You know, for those who don't, I'm gonna go into it. Proverbs 16 and 18. You know, it's gonna show you what happens to a prideful person. You know, this is Proverbs 16 and 18. Pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. So, you know, that's the result right there of a prideful or foolish person, This is why we must choose wisely who we decide to surround ourselves with. Because in this world, anybody who's ever been in trouble with the law or, just lived that life, that street life or whatever you want to call it, that fucking dumbass life, really. I was in it too, so, don't think I'm talking shit. I was a dumbass myself. So, that's how I know. It's just how I know what I'm talking about right here. So like I said, in the world, when you're living that fucking street life and, running around with likewise individuals, sooner or later there's gonna come a point in your street career, whatever you want to call it, you're gonna get, there's gonna be a time where you're gonna be riding around with some people that have some stuff that they're not supposed to have, whatever the situation may be, whatever they have, they're not supposed to have, and you're gonna find yourself in the situation getting pulled over, as everybody has, it's, living that life. You get pulled over, cops like to fuck with Jake. Regular cops like to mess with regular Jake. They're law abiding just because of their skin color. Imagine when you're giving them a reason. Riding dirty, as they say. So when you get pulled over and whoever's got whatever on them that they're not supposed to have, there's rules. There's a code. So this, it's fucking stupid, but like I said, there's a code to the streets. Whatever's in the car, that don't belong to nobody. Nobody says a thing. Everybody keep your mouth shut. We'll figure it out when we figure it out. The thing with that is, which is my point, when the cops pull you over and everybody's saying, oh, that ain't mine, or you're not saying nothing, ultimately, they're not just going to say, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, I pick you, it's yours. No, everybody's going to jail. Everybody's going downtown. Because why? Because you're guilty by association. You don't want to say who it belongs to, and you don't want to claim it. Well, guess what? Everybody's taking a ride downtown. Like I said, when you're hanging around with those type of people, they say you are who you associate with. At least that's how they see it. You're hanging around with these people doing all this bad shit. Even if you ain't never, even if you just hopped in the car because you needed a ride down the street and you didn't know what the hell was in the car, well, guess what? That does not matter. You're hanging out with them. You must be doing the same thing they're doing. You're going downtown until we figure this out. You're guilty by association. That was the point. That's why it's so important that we don't just, hang out with whoever, because when it's all said and done spiritually, you start hanging around these people long enough, your flesh starts to bend. You start picking up their habits little by little, or even if you don't pick up, even if it's not like a crazy, habit that's against the law, the law of the Lord. They could just be a lazy motherfucker, and that rubs off on you. And next thing you know, you're starting to slack on your lessons, and you're starting to slack on, hitting the highways and byways because you're hanging out with these people, and they got other plans and whatever thoughts are going through your head. That, like I said, that flesh will bend one way or another, for good or for bad. So if you're already in your righteous mind state and you start hanging around these people for whatever reason it may be, like I said, you hang around with them long enough, yeah, you're gonna start to be guilty by association, because their spirit's gonna start rubbing off on you, and their bad habits are gonna start rubbing off on you. Like, it doesn't have to be a crazy bad habit for it to rub off on you, you know, and affect you. It just takes that you know, that one time for the flesh to bend, and you don't feel like you did anything that bad, and next thing you know, it happens again. It happens again. Next thing you know, you're not praying, you're not doing your lessons, you're not studying, you're just completely in the world, and you know, falling out of the spirit. You know, just another Jake. You know, just another Jake lost in the sauce. You know, just like many. You know, today. You know, these days. Let's see. I like to go into Proverbs 22. So like 22 and 24. Make no friendship with an angry man, and with a furious man thou shalt go, lest thou learn his ways, and get a snare to thy soul. So yeah, the angry man. It's not just, yeah, it is talking about anger, because you don't want to be like that angry man. You don't want to be quick to wrath. You know what I mean? You don't want to just lose it at the drop of a dime. Because like I said, that's not good for when you're out there on the highways and byways, and sometimes you have one scoffer, sometimes you have multiple scoffers. Shit, sometimes you get scoffers before camp even freaking starts and the camera starts rolling. You already got these fucking bum ass dudes out there, with their demons all riled up, and just looking to cause some type of drama, just whatever the case may be. Especially out in in Las Vegas, where we teach. And I always say, this is a cesspool of sin, and demons. Some days there's more than others. Some days are chill. We don't see nothing. And some days are back to back, or we just got one that just does not want to leave the whole, and it just turns into this, it'll usually be a little, not nothing crazy, but it'll be an annoying debate. You know what I mean? Like, you're getting your point across, but they're not taking in. They're just coming up with BS on BS on BS, and they can't back none of it up. It just, we're cutting them and proving the point for the listeners, not to it's not spread confusion to the listeners on the camera. But at the same time, it does get repetitive, and then it just becomes very annoying, And being an angry man, that'll be bad. That'd be having the spirit of an angry man. That's not good in those type of situations, because they're blinded by their demons, and their ignorance, and wanting to make their point. And then here comes the angry, teacher, whoever, going back and forth. They're just bumping heads, and it's not helping the situation out, and it's not getting. It just becomes a shit show, a big circus. So also, like I said, it's not just anger. When you go into that word, angry. Yes, it does go into anger, but when you look up on the Edom Online, now it has a couple other things that it goes into before it gets to my point. But I'm gonna just go straight to the point that I'm trying to make. So when you look it up, angry goes into anger, obviously, and the old Norse word, the anger goes, that went into anger was anger gapi, It's spelled Angrgapi. Angergapi. I believe that's how it's pronounced. But it means rash or foolish person. And another Norse word that anger went into, is anger laus, which is spelled like Angergapi, Angr, but at the end it's Lauss, Anger laus, meaning free from care. So so I can go back to the precept. So ultimately, it's saying, make no foolish person, or a person that lives carefree, a carefree person. Make no friendship with them. Because any man or woman or whatever, living without any sense of spiritual care, is ultimately living without fear of the Lord, of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. And to live without the fear takes you back to being a arrogant person, being a foolish person, a simpleton. Because without fear of the Lord, let me just go into it. Proverbs 1:7. Showing a person that lives without care is a foolish person. Why? Because they don't have wisdom. Proverbs 1:7 says it right there. The fear of the Lord Yahweh is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. So yeah, to have the fear of the Lord is to have knowledge and wisdom and ultimately understanding. And without the fear of the Lord, you say you're a fool, you're a simpleton. Also, let me go into another Proverbs 14 and 14 and 16. A wise man feareth and departeth from evil, but a fool rageth and is confident. Like I said in the NLT, I like this translation. It says, the wise are cautious and avoid danger, but fools plunge ahead with reckless confidence. So yeah, like I said, back to the highways and byways. The fool, a wise man is gonna use that discernment and feel the situation out. Like even I believe it was last week. Our elder, Shaquat. He was telling us about being in these type of situations and knowing when to use that discernment. Some brothers, if not just shut it down altogether and just, hey brother, you do, this isn't the time for you to be out here. Come back when you're in the right mind, and we'll answer your questions. I've seen it, and I'm sure other brothers have seen it, or heard it on brothers' videos, their live streams while they're out there on the highways and byways. If the situation is just going nowhere and is, just taking away from the lesson and feels like it might become something it doesn't need to be, hey brother, just shut it down completely and just leave and don't come back, or come back when you're in the right mind to actually listen and have a conversation. That's what a wise man would do. But like I said, that foolish will plunge ahead into with reckless confidence. Just the debate wasn't going your way, it ain't going their way, and you're sick of it, and you just, the dude probably, man, fuck you, whatever, you know what I mean? The dude, the scoffer person will, cuss you out and try to rile up that, that anger up in you, and try to bring it up out of you, and if you're in that full mind state, an undercover fool, you're gonna fall for that bait, and next thing you know, garments are flying off, and hands are being thrown, and cops are being called, and just the situation no one needs to be in. Like it's not what we're out here for. We're not out here playing Street Fighter. We're out here to do the will of the Lord. Anyway, so yeah, to be without fear of the Lord, or live carelessly, is to be without fear of the Lord, and to be without fear of the Lord is to be without knowledge. So if someone's living carelessly without knowledge, why would that be someone that you want to surround yourself with? Why would you want to ultimately attach your name to those type of activities? Because if you're not fearing the Lord, then you're not keeping His commandments, and pertaining to Ecclesiastes 12:13. What is the whole duty of man? Is to fear Yahweh and keep His commandments. Plain and simple. That's how we're supposed to be conducting ourselves, and that's the type of brothers we're supposed to be surrounding ourselves with. Because if not, you're gonna get the reward of, you're gonna get the same reward that they're gonna get ultimately, eventually. If you're not built up in your spirit, that is, like I said, if you're not grounded, then yeah, you are gonna receive that reward. So like, I lost my train of thought. Anyway, let me go into. This is back into Proverbs 13. This is the next verse. I brought out 20. Now I'm gonna bring out 21, which I want to show you why. It's not good to associate with yourself with these people, because, like I said, it goes back into being guilty by association. Once you start, once those bad habits and spirits start to rub off on you, and you start to reflect that, this is going to come into play, and this is why you don't want to have these people around you. So Proverbs 13:21 in the NLT: trouble chases sinners, while blessings reward the righteous. So yeah, depending on which way your flesh bends, whether it's in the unrighteous way, it bends towards unrighteousness, or if it bends towards righteousness, there's a reward for either one of those. You could either be showered with blessings, whatever the Lord decides to bestow upon you, or you could be showered with trouble, again, whatever the Lord decides to bestow upon you. It could be little trouble, it could be big trouble, depending on how you conduct yourself, and how you move spiritually. Next precept I wanted to bring out is Amos 3:3. Can two walk together except they be agreed? Which shows, if you're surrounding yourself with these type of people, in this type of mindset, that a worldly mindset, that shows what type of spirit you're in. Because like it says, can two walk together except they be agreed? So if you're yoked, with these unbelievers and worldly, thinkers, that shows that you're in agreement with it. You're condoning their lifestyle. you know, you're accepting the way that they act, and that's not how we're supposed to be moving in in this truth. You know, we don't want to be friends of the world. You know, you know, because once you become a friend to the world, you become an enemy to the Most High. You know, it shows the scriptures show us how we're supposed to conduct ourselves. You know, spiritually, uh, like how we're supposed to be. You know, so we don't even end up in the situation where we're you know, walking hand in hand with, you know, the unrighteous, so to speak. You know, we shut it down altogether. You know, by the way we live our lives, which is, you know, going into Psalms 97:10, where it says, "Love Yahweh and hate evil." You know, those are the instructions. You know, that is a commandment. And what do? We keep His commandments, because this is the whole duty of man. You know, going back into Ecclesiastes 12:13. You know, like I just brought out. And when you go into that word evil, you know, it says love Yahweh and hate evil. You know, that word evil in the Hebrew is rai, meaning bad, evil, wicked, you know, ethically, you know, of persons or of thoughts, deeds, or actions. So pretty much, you know, hate wicked people, hate their wicked thoughts, and hate their wicked actions. Hate everything about wickedness, you know, and that's how you show your love to the Lord, you know. Love Yahweh and hate evil, you know, plain and simple. Uh, so yeah, pretty much, you know, as servants of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai, you know, we must be careful about who we spend our time with. Um, you know, who we let influence our, you know, our way of thinking, our mindset. We need to be cautious of the source of entertainment we consume, the philosophies that we allow to enter into our mind. Because just as that, you know, that pitch stains our clothing, you know, worldly thinking and worldly you know, company, you know, the way they think, their spirits, it stains our conscience, you know, our spirit. uh you know, that is if it's embraced continually, you know what I mean. You know, now it's fine, I'm not saying that you know, when you see a person in the world cross the street, or, you know, that's in that worldly mindset, cross the street, or you know, hit the road, and you know, once you see him hit the road, go the opposite way. No, that's not it. Because, you know, there's so much wickedness and bullshit in this world. If you wanted, like I said, if you didn't, I was telling a brother at camp the other day, like, if you wanted to get away from all the bullshit that's going on in the world, you'd have to go to another planet. You know, it's impossible to outrun the wickedness in this world. You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean that we have to surround ourselves with it. Yeah, we go to work with these ignorant, wicked people, and, you know, we even have them in our own families. Yeah, we come into contact with them all the time. That doesn't mean we, you know, have to hang out with them on our free time, or, you know, we come, you know, like I said, we go to our family's house, we see our family that's in this worldly bullshit, we have our conversations. Hey, hi, how you doing, yada yada, you know, bye, I gotta go. And that's it, you know. And that's not gonna, that interaction alone is not gonna you know, unless you're a really weak person in the spirit, that's not gonna have no effect on you. But if you you know, you're hanging out, you know, you run into your cousin Pookie that just came in from, you know, moved from out of town, and you know, you're kicking it with him all the time, and now his little habits are starting to wear off on you, and it's starting to become noticeable. That's the problem. You know what I mean? That's the point of the lesson. Not just stay away from everybody. Like I said, of course we're gonna have interactions, but it doesn't mean we have to bring these people around us all the time and oh, this guy's so cool, you know what I mean, or whatever the case may be. It's just be cautious of who you let around you. Who you decide to keep as company, because they could bring you down spiritually, mentally, all the way around. You know. Um, so like I said, if we embrace, if we embrace that spirit, continually, it'll start to affect us. An example would be that I could think of is Genesis 19. How it shows that Lot, lived Lot lived among the wicked in Sodom. Although he was righteous, living among them brought grief and hardship to his household. This shows that the danger of dwelling too closely to the wicked influences. All the everything that was going on in that city was against the Lord. Ultimately led to them being judged, which brought hardship, and grief into Lot, because he had to leave his land. Everything they had to go through was ultimately because that land was wicked, and him being there, like I said, dwelling so closely to them in that same land ended up affecting them, just like you dwelling, with the wicked now. Sooner or later, it's going to affect you. Their lifestyle and their life choices is going to affect you in one way or another. And you're not going to notice it until it's too late. So with that being said, we need to examine ourselves, spiritually. We need to constantly be asking ourselves, and this is just for the people that are in these type, because this isn't fall to everybody. Not everybody, you know what I mean? There's people that this pertains to, and it doesn't. The people that this pertains to, like I said, we need to examine ourselves spiritually, asking questions such as, are my friendships strengthening my faith? Do the people around me encourage the obedience of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai? Am I influencing the world, or is this world influencing me? And to be honest, I think these are kind of things that pertain to brothers that are barely getting into the truth. Because once you're, I mean, like I said, you could be solid in the truth and come around some fools that'll sway the way you think. So, but like I said, once you get that solid foundation and you're around the right brothers, at least here, in GMS, like I haven't met a brother that gives me that vibe, like, I wouldn't want, that vibe of, there's just people you get the, like, I wouldn't want that brother around me because of how he acts, type of vibe. I don't get that from any brother in GMS. Now, not that I've met brothers from other camps, but hearing about these other camps and their situations, I could tell you off top, I wouldn't want no damn Deacon Hakah hanging around me. You know what I mean? On or fucking Alazar, any of those, you know what I mean? Any of those fools, I wouldn't want them hanging around me. So, like I said, I don't get that vibe from any of my brothers in my camp. So what I'm saying, like, anyway, So pretty much, to close this out, Sirach 13:1 teaches that association matters. Just as touching pitch leaves a stain, continual fellowship with the proud and ungodly can gradually change a person's mindset, and character. Therefore, seek the company of those that fear the Lord and love righteousness. Be around like-minded brothers that sharpen you spiritually. Because just like it says in Proverbs 27, iron sharpeneth iron, so a man sharpeneth the countenance of his friend. The hopeful elect should seek companions who encourage faithfulness and humility and endurance, until the returning of the Lord. Those are the men that you want to surround yourself with. Solid, just solid in the faith, brothers that are solid in the spirit. These are the men that we want to be around. Those that lead us on the right path. And not hinder us and company that becomes a stumbling block unto us. No, that's out. I mean? We're anybody that's solid enough in this truth and that's sincere about it. We're too far into we're too far into this race to let some dumbass motherfucker come into our lives and throw us off our path. That's ultimately what it comes down to. And if you are foolish enough to let one of these proud men, these fools, enter into your life and throw you off your course, then you deserve everything you got coming, at this point in the race. Like that, it's crazy just sitting, like, as I'm saying it, it's kind of mind-boggling just thinking about that happening. I mean, that could happen to anybody. I mean? The Lord could put that upon any man's spirit. So don't think that we're so built up and that it can't happen to us. But like I said, that'd be some bullshit at this point in the race to run into anybody and let them throw you off your course. You know what I mean? We got too much to lose and we've gained so much already. To let it all go. But anyway, that I don't want to keep going on, be long-winded on it. Lord willing, this was edifying unto the body. Your brothers and sisters that are listening. I'd like to close out saying Kahalayam La, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Hawachak Wadash, Wa Mashanak, Hawabadiam La Hazakwanyam, Shagar Wa Rakab. Sincere shalom to you, you Akim pushing this word in righteousness and sincerity. Sincere shalom wa barakatah to you, you sisters and learning this truth for you and your children. Seeking your salvation with fear and trembling. Double honors, I already said it, but I'll say it again. I said it in the Hebrew, but double honors unto the elder apostles and bishops of the great millstone. Until next time, shalom wa ba ba ba.